Okay, so to give people a little bit of background, I have a history of working in Hollywood in the script development arena. So I kind of know how movie structures go. So the first act of a movie is basically the establishing one. And we would probably liken that to be President Trump's first term in the White House. That's where we established his environment. We got an idea of what he had to deal with. We got an idea of who the bad guys were. And then the second act is when Biden won, quote unquote, the election and Trump, quote unquote, lost. And that's when he went on his solitary hero's journey, which surprised all of us, including the main character. And then Biden, who's what we would consider the antagonist, seemed to win. And during the second act structure, the evil people or the antagonist seems to get bigger and more stronger and more dominant, whereas the hero side seems to have to overcome obstacle. So by the time we get to the third act, that's more of like a beachhead. That's getting to a beachhead of a place where we're rooting for that hero to reach that point. He's now got a position where he can either defeat the enemy totally, or it gives the impression that he has defeated the enemy. And I feel that there is a certain sense of feeling from people that the enemy has been somewhat defeated, and that is actually not how it goes. But so when we get into the third act, as I said in the last time, now the pace starts to quicken. So you're going to start, and Mark, you were even talking about how, oh man, it's one thing after another. Exactly. It's supposed to be a succession of events that happens faster and faster. And your audience doesn't have as much time to process the events like they could before. There wasn't as much time to absorb it. Now it's like one thing. So the object of the third act is to kind of get people through an emotional final ride to the feeling of edge of your seat. So Scott was even like, I'm loving to watch this movie. I'm on the edge of my seat. Exactly. So there's a couple things that happen. The third act goes in a succession because everything that we've been watching all the way through to this point has to be tied in a nice little bow. There are a number of subplots and main plots and setups and payoffs that have to happen. And so we're watching all different types of through lines come to the very end. Okay, so that has to take time. But if the writers do it right, they will get you to the point where you don't notice that it's seemingly, oh my God, it's coming from this direction and this direction and this direction. It all is sort of making sense. It's like a big circular round, and then eventually you get there, but you feel the building of leading up to. So here's one thing I want to tell you. There's an observation that I've made that the White Hats have done on purpose. And that is that they've had audience A, which I believe we call the normies, and audience B, which I would believe us. And the reason why I think that we are annoyed to a certain extent with this movie is because Q gave us kind of the script already. We already have seen the movie in a way. We've already emotionally arrived at many of the places that we are waiting for our friends, colleagues, loved ones, spouses, whatever, to get to. And when you run into people who don't want to hear what you have to say, it's like, have you ever been to the movies with someone that's already seen the movie? Do you want them to tell you how it ends? Do you want them to tell you how the next big event is going to happen? No. You paid for the movie. That's the experience you want to go to. There are people that I know that spend hard-earned cash to go and watch people get chopped up with machetes and you know, those, you know, I don't know, chainsaws, because that's the experience they want to have. So, but here's what I think is very important about that I want to get to. And that is that there's two things. The audience, in order to be able to believe on both sides, on us too, because I think at some point, the writers of this movie are going to bring both audiences together and we're going to be rooting for the same team. But right now we're not. But we have to believe that the enemy has unleashed everything onto his villain or onto his defeat, or the hero. We know some of the things that the enemy has in his quiver, and they're horrible. The normies are just starting to see that. They have to get to a point through this part of the third act to where that enemy unleashing all he has on the field, because if he doesn't, then it doesn't feel believable when the hero defeats him. And on the other hand, the hero has to defeat him with something that we never really saw coming. But when we think back, oh, yeah, that made sense. Oh, yeah, he did talk about that. Oh, yeah, he did possess that skill, and we kind of blew it off. But it's got to be something that we really are like, wow, that was brilliant. We never really saw that coming. That's the only thing he could have done to defeat the enemy in order for us to believe it. Otherwise, we're like, that's really vapid. So I just think about what we've learned, what we know, what we've heard about what Trump is doing, kind of hinting at, might give us an idea that we're going to be in for one hell of a wild ride, guys. And people have to be willing to understand that if we find out that they are willing to go through what they did to try to kill 8 billion people, what is the climax going to look like where we're nail biting? And here's where I think the change is going to happen when they bring the two audiences together. And that is when the normies finally realize, and I think they've done this on purpose and not doing this and letting them go through what they're going through to reach this, when they finally realize that the people that they have been rooting for and separating their families over and everything are the very people, the evil people that they think are the heroes, and they realize that's actually the enemy, that's when they're going to be really, they're going to be cheering for Trump louder than we are. And that's when we finally, I think, are going to be at the same point. And once that reveal happens, then we're going on the climax ride, folks, because they have to bring everybody together to be cheering. And then you have the resolution. I think the tribunals are part of the resolution. I think GESARA is part of the resolution. I think the IRS being eliminated and we go is part of the resolution. We're getting up to this huge, big thing. And we have to eventually come together as one audience. RFK Jr., let me just picture this. Just picture this. That man, not only is he good looking, not only does he look like he used to be a bodybuilder in a former life and he's got his background, but the thing that's the level of that I saw that I just think is just an excellent casting choice is that voice. Can you imagine the things he is going to tell people, the horrid truths that he is going to be uttering, and that gritty sounding voice? I mean, casting is about a role. It's about resonating. And that voice is going to be saying some of the most horrible shit people are going to hear. And it's coming through a raspy, it's just awesome. It just was like awesome.
Can I just jump here? I mean, Bria, yes, Bria, absolutely just brilliant, genius, everything you said. I love how you come from Hollywood and you're describing the arc of this story we're watching. It's like Sun Tzu's Art of War meets the Karate Kid. You even described why a lot of our accounts were shadow banned and throttled, because they don't want to spoil the ending of the movie, which was freaking brilliant.
Right.
But here's the part that I was hoping you would bring into the parlance of Hollywood. When you call back to what I said about the pace at which things are coming, you know what stage we're in right now of every one of these movies? We're in the montage. You got to show a passage of time, a montage.
Yeah.
Remember the South Park scene? I queued it up.
We're gonna need a montage. A sports training montage.
We're in the montage where all these things happen so fast that they're too fast for the viewer to comprehend them all. So they do a little 3-4 minute montage, and you realize, okay, they just trained. Now they're strong. Now they can box. Now they can do sit-ups hanging from a tree. And now they're ready for the fight. And that's what we're doing, because not everyone, no one can pick up everything that's happening right now. We are literally living through the montage, which means we are headed to, as you said, the climax.
Yes.
Yep.
Brilliant, Bria. Brilliant.
I now know how I've been so frustrated with my family for 7+ years. I've seen the ending of The Sixth Sense, and they're still walking around going, why does that kid keep saying I see dead people all the time? And I'm like,
right. Right. Here's something else I want you to also think about. Q talked about the sum of all fears. Didn't he say that? He said it's like the sum of all fears. But he's also telling you the type of movie you're watching. If you watch that movie is about it's a political thriller. But understand, the main idea of the movie we're watching is what? Q told us what it was. Only at the precipice will the people find the will to change. So that's the whole point of the movie. So every scene is going to go to that movie. So if you watch The Sum of All Fears, whatever the main idea of that is, but it's a movie where you don't know who is the good guy, the bad guy, until what? Till the very sort of ending third act, when it all starts to come together. But The Sum of All Fears is also a movie that you also want to see a second time, because you end up missing shit. And you want to see why they did that. Q gave us the script for the people who are interested in being the behind the scenes movie people. We want to be the behind the scenes movie people. And quite frankly, shows like Joe Rambo Show and Eye of the Storm and Dave, your posts and everybody's stuff. What are you doing? You're telling everybody, hey, this is how the movie's being made. Even the cute little prop shit with the 17 on the bottom of the inauguration stage. I mean, people in Hollywood do that stuff all the time. They put those little Easter eggs in there for the people who are on the movie, or for the people who are in, I mean, constantly, all the time. So but I got to laugh. I got to laugh about Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem. Go and look what Kristi Noem looked like in 2018, 2019, 2020. Somebody told her, in order to be in the movie, you got to wear hair extensions, because she looks like she just got off the cover of Sports Illustrated. And when I watched this, I was like, oh my God, these people are going to be in front of the television a lot, because the normers are going to be watching them.
Yep.
Well, what about Pete Hegseth? He doesn't have hair extensions.
Well, I call her brunette Barbie in the Ken doll. Okay. So that's all I'm going to say.
And we've been talking about this for a long time. I mean, human psychology, marketing 101. Do you think it's a coincidence that every person in administration is incredibly good looking? No.
Right.
Not at all.
Exactly.
It might as well be a beer commercial.
I think a bunch of men wrote this movie. No, nothing against them. But anyway, it's good.
Thank you, Bria. Incredible job.
Right. That was
okay.
I have never seen a caller blow up the chat like that. That was incredible.
No,
she's amazing.
But I just want to revisit one thing that she said, because it's so important, right? And it's literally, go back to our good friend Drew James, and I'm not calling out Drew. I love Drew. But she just gave you the answer that we have been screaming about for a year, right? People cannot wrap their heads around, why has the mainstream media not been taken down? Why is Maxine Waters still out there doing that? Why? She summed it up perfectly. Every person on this show right now has experienced that moment, whether it was last year or 20 years ago, has experienced the moment where you realize you got tricked.
Yes.
And then you realize you got tricked by somebody who was intentionally trying to deceive you. And that is a horrible feeling. Whether it's your girlfriend or the news, it's a bad, bad feeling. You don't forget it. You can't recreate that moment. Everyone must live that moment. So what she was describing, that moment where the people, that 4 to 6%, the people screaming, the people in these videos, realize that CNN's been lying to them this whole time, realize that their favorite politician, their favorite podcaster, their favorite whatever, that's the moment where your matrix gets shattered, and you must allow everyone to go through that individually. If you simply took down the mainstream media and told everybody the truth, if you simply took down all the politicians and told everybody the truth, then it would just happen all over again because they wouldn't learn what it's like to get tricked. Once you learn what it's like to get tricked, you never go back. And that was, to me, that whole thing was brilliant. But that is exactly why we sit here every week. Oh, these people aren't getting it. Oh, they're singing this terrible song on television. Oh, look at the people screaming on X. I've said it from the beginning, and I believe it. And I think Bria would agree. You are going to see, like, they're going to be hanging people on the gallows. There's going to be videos of them confessing, and there's still going to be people telling you it's not real, just to get that last group of people to see the lying in real time. I think that is incredibly important. That's why all this is still happening.